Hello there, and welcome to the second video of my tutorial series in creating a realistic airport using Airport Design Editor, Airfield Lights Toolbox, and SBuilderX. This video will start with using SBuilderX to retrieve the satellite images of our airport. We will then convert and resize those images for Airport Design Editor. Then we'll open Airport Design Editor, start our project, and import the images. This video will assume that you've viewed and installed all the tools from the first video. So to start, we'll open up SBuilderX. The first time it runs, we'll need to check what map service it uses. So click OK, make it big. So to check the map service, we click Edit, then Preferences. In the window, we'll see all the different mapping services that it can use. So my preference is to use Google Satellite, and Google Satellite has a special feature where if you zoom in too far past the zoom level that the tiles are at, then it will actually just stretch the existing tiles a little bit, but it will not get new higher resolution tiles if you go in too far. The other services, however, if you zoom in too far, you end up getting a tile that is a large gray tile with an arrow on it that says that the tile is not available, forcing you to have to zoom out. So I'm going to use Google Satellite. Now one of the things is if you're using an airport that hasn't been mapped in a while, then you're going to possibly want to use one of the other services if it's more recent. But once you've selected your service, go ahead and click OK. Now before we show the map in the background, we're going to want to zoom out a little bit. And that's because SBuilder starts at the west coast of Spain. Since my airport is on the other side of the world, keeping it at a zoom level of 8 means I'm going to have to pan across the globe, downloading tiles as I go, and it can be a very time-consuming process. So I'm going to zoom out to the level 3, and it will reduce the panning that I have to do. So once I've got to zoom level 3, I can go to View, and then Show Background, or I can hit F1. So now it's going to download all the tiles and then pop up the display. So now I'm going to use the magnifying glass tool to zoom in. So I'm going to go over to where I believe my airport is and keep zooming in. Now I want to wait till this stops, but apparently Google Satellite has just frozen. So I'm going to use F1 to make it go away. Wait a couple of seconds, then F1 to bring it back again, and there it is. Okay, so I just keep zooming in just like that. Now one of the surefire ways of causing SBuilder to crash is that while it's still downloading tiles for you to tell it to go get new ones. So make sure that you wait till the message down here goes away before you start zooming in again. Now I'm going to start in the southwest corner. Basically the idea is that you just want to follow the fence line all around the airport to get the airport boundaries just right. Stalled again. Okay. So I'm going to stay at about zoom level 18. I don't need to go in too much further. As we can see, there's still quite a bit of detail. I can see the fence line. For areas that I require more detail, I can zoom in later and get a much more detailed shot. But for right now, the overview is actually going to be pretty good from this. So now that I'm done zooming in, I'm going to go back to pointer mode. And I'm going to move this bottom left corner here to the bottom left corner of the window. And so now I'm going to take a look at different objects so I can see that the runway is right at the very top of the screen. So that's kind of going to be my next little bit. And I can see that this little pond here is on the right hand side. So those markers are going to end up from the right side of the screen on the left side of the screen after I take the image. So first I'm going to right click, then go to background, then save. So now I'm going to go to my documents folder, scenery development, the land, images. Now for the file name, the best I've come to figure out is that if this is the first image we're taking, I'm just going to call it 1 and then save. So now it's going to freeze for a second until it comes back with this little arrow. So there really isn't a problem. So all I have to do is click OK, make it go away, and move on. So now I'm going to pan the screen. I'm going to put that little pond on the left-hand side of the screen, right about there. So I can see that the fence line comes up and around. So I'm going to background, save to. Okay. Move up. Right click, background, save, 3. Come on, where's that World War II? There it is. Okay, right click, background, save, 4. And so basically I'm just following the airport around. So I'm not going to bore you by creating all these different picture files, but for the most part, you just keep dragging around the airport, right click, background, save, next number, save, then OK. So that's it as far as SBuilder goes. So basically I'm just going to close SBuilder. And now it's time to load that information to ADE. But before we do, we need to convert that data for ADE. And we've got to take the TIFF files that SBuilder was just saving and convert them into a more usable format. So we will go into the Documents folder, Scenery Development, and we'll go into the Land folder, then Images. And so here's all of our TIFF files. So we've got our TIFF backup folder. Even created some text files. Inside those text files are the latitudes and longitudes of the top left and bottom right corner, which just so happens to be the same information that we need in Airport Design Editor. So first, I'm going to take the TIFF file, drag it down to Image Convert, and it opens up the text file for us automatically. That's part of my script. Once it converts the document into a JPEG, it will move the TIFF file into the TIFF folder. That way that it gets it out of the same folder as here, keeping the image number 1 is just a JPEG. That way that we don't have two images that are both called number 1 right next to each other, and it might take a little bit of work to figure out which one's the TIFF and which one's the JPEG, and we accidentally load the TIFF file, and we can run out of memory very quickly doing that. So it's set up that we can just go ahead and continuously move and extract. So I'm going to make these into small. Let's see which one. Yeah, it'll work. Maybe we'll do a list. There we go. List. That'll work perfect. So now I can just take the TIFF file and drag it over image, convert, and then the JPEGs will continue vertically. So move this down here. Okay, so now that we've got the Windows position, we can open up Airport Design Editor. Make this a little bit smaller. Move it up over top here. Okay, so now I'm going to create my airport project. So I'm going to go to File, Open Stock Airport, and I'm going to put in the ICAO letters of the airport. And there it is, open. So now it's decompiling apx26210.bgl. It's dragging out all of the information out of the decompiled information, and then it's going to create a project for us that we're going to be able to use. Okay, there it goes. So now here's the airport. So when I look at the airport, I see this giant apron here in the middle, another apron over here, and then some taxiways on both ends. So why would this be so big and these be so skinny? It turns out that the land airport used to be a naval air station, and these were actually 2 cross runways that they used way back in World War II, and they've since been closed and they've been decommissioned and all sorts of other things have gone on. But basically, these are supposed to be runways all the way along. Also over here is a giant blast pad that's actually about twice the width of the runway, and we can see there's just a taxiway leading up to the runway, so that's inaccurate. There's also a blast pad over here, so that blast pad is missing completely, and then these taxiways aren't even close to where they're supposed to be. There's supposed to be a taxiway that goes here over to the end of runway 23. Runway 23 isn't even long enough. It's actually supposed to be about 800 or 900 feet longer than what it is in Flight Simulator. So there's a lot of little discrepancies here. But when we look at it, it's hard to tell what the discrepancies are because, well, we just have this giant yellow background. Well, let's go ahead and fix that. So I'm going to make this small again. All we have to do is right-click, then Add, Image. Click the three little dots here, and then we're going to go to Documents, Scenery Development, Land, Images. We're going to find the JPEG. So open it. Enter the coordinates, and this is why I have it set up so that it automatically opens the text file. So all we have to do is highlight what we want, hit Control-C to copy, click where we want it to go, and paste. Copy, paste. Make sure you get the negatives for any west longitudes and east longitudes. Make sure we get the negatives in there because otherwise it'll be a very interesting image. And then now if we look, there's our image, and in fact, there's the blast pad we were talking about. So we can also see that this boundary fence goes right through the end of the blast pad, cuts off a lot of the airport, so there's supposed to be a boundary fence going this way instead of going where it is. So we'll see that there's quite a few things that are very off about this. So the next thing we'll do is just add image, click on the three dots. Oops, I haven't configured the 2 yet, so I'm just going to go in here and drag over to image convert. There it is, and it pops up. Open. Click the box, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. So basically we've got north, south, east, west. So north, south, east, west, just like that. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Easy enough. So there's our next image. So we can see it. There is some overlap. So these images overlap in a small amount of way, but it's not terrible that we got to worry about it. Oops. So right click, add image, three dots, convert, then 3, open. This portion of the setup is tedious, but this is what makes making an airport a very easy affair, because once we have the images in the background, it then becomes just a matter of tracing the airport that's in there. So we can see there's quite a bit of overlap here, but it's still going to be okay. So add another image. So there we've got 4. So it doesn't really matter if you convert the image and then you try and add it, or if you go to add the image and then convert the file, because the dialog will update along with it. But before we can select it, it obviously should be converted. So we'll close both of those. Now I've got one last one to do. Right click, add image, triple dots, 5, open, checkbox. So now the only thing that would make this painless, or rather painless, would be if the developer of Airport Design Editor would make it so that it can open up these text documents whenever we load a JPEG. It would load the text document with the same name as the JPEG file or whatever image file we decide to load. And in that case, what would end up happening is that we wouldn't have to copy and paste all of this information. And that is the 75-cent tour of adding these images. So I'm only loading these 5 for now, but we can already see some interesting things. Like if I go here and I click on the big apron and I go down to delete object, we can see these little blue lines here that show where the apron used to be. Well, look at this. It's about 20 feet out in the grass. So that apron wasn't even close to the actual layout of the real apron. So before I go too far, I don't like using much that's default at these airports. I do a lot of very custom things, and it takes a while, yes, but at the same time, the results are worth it because the result makes it almost picture perfect. It takes a little bit of work, but it's worth it in the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to lists, and I'm going to taxi points, and I'm going to select all and delete. I'm going to get rid of all those taxiways. They're not even in the right place anyway, so why keep them? I'm going to keep all the start points because they're mostly in the right location. So I'm going to go to lists, and then I'm going to go to, let's see here, what am I looking for? Oh, sorry, not lists. Meant to go view starts to get rid of the starts off of the view. Now they're not gone, they're just hidden. I'm going to hide taxi signs. I'm going to hide parking and taxiways. I'm going to hide generic buildings. I'm going to hide library objects. So basically all that should be left are going to be the runways themselves, the aprons, edge lights, boundary fences, basic stuff, but nothing that I'm going to actually use in most cases. The runways are the only things that I want to see that I'm not actually going to use. So just delete all these little objects that are just in the way. Okay. So I'm going to leave this apron here just because it's kind of in the right way. And there it is. That's the start of my new airport. So now I'm going to go up to File, then Save Airport. Now it's going to ask me where I would like to save it. Notice that it's Airport Design Editor X, and then my initials at the end of it, and then the ICAO at the beginning. So that's the standard way that it's going to save these projects. That way, if I'm working on a project and someone else happens to be working on the same thing, we can share our project files, and because our initials are different, then there won't be a discrepancy because there's two files with the same name. So I'm going to click on the triple dots, and now I'm going to save this to my folder in my scenery development, DeLand, and then I'm going to click OK, and then save. So the airport is saved. If I go in here and I go to my scenery development, DeLand folder, there is my AD4 file for my current DeLand airport. So to speed up the process a little bit, I've already created an airport file that has all of the images loaded. Okay, so there it is. So we can see the runways here, another runway here. There's a giant chunk taken out of it. Now it's grown over with grass. So there's quite a bit of work that needs to be done with this airport. We can see there's a little square up here that's missing. So once you get all of the images loaded, you'll see where you have missing holes, and you're going to need to take another picture in order to fill in that hole. But for the most part, makes it kind of simple. Now when Airport Design Editor loads a picture, if I unlock this one and then I go to edit it, gives me a image quality of 75. So I can actually turn that up to 100 and it will be the original quality. Let's see if I can look at that image directly. So if I'm looking at the tile next to it, is going to have an image quality of 75, and this image here has an image quality of 100. Can we tell a difference between them? Well, I don't see much of one. So basically what that really means is that all of the 75% loaded images are basically where you have 3/4 of the pixels. So if you have a resolution of 2000 by 1000, let's say, then the new image that we're looking at here at 75% is about 1500 by 750. So each direction is going to have 75% of the pixels as the original. We can see that with this image, there's actually not much of a difference between full resolution and the 75% resolution. And that is what the other little tool is. When we go to the images folder, we have the image resize. So when I look at these images are 2816 by 1792. So if I go to the image resize and I right click and edit, that image resize is going to be right here. So these are the resize width and height. So this number should be 75% of whatever the other number just was. So if I make this smaller again, okay, get that just so. So now we can see that the image is 2816 by 1792. So I'm going to open up a calculator. So 2816 times 0.75 equals 2112. So this image that's actually loaded in Airport Design Editor is roughly 2112 pixels wide. And the other direction is 1792 times, no, not, there we go, 0.75 is 1344. So whatever resolution that your tiles end up coming out, you're going to want to put into the calculator and then change the width and the height. Change these parts to the actual width and the height that you want the program to create. Now, if you drag the JPEG, doesn't matter which one, if you just drag one of them onto the image resize, it will resize all of the JPEGs in the folder to this size here, whatever you've got specified. So that is just kind of a quick way to resize these images. Now, the fewer pixels that you're actually dealing with, the more pixels that you can actually load into Airport Design Editor, because we're not sharing those pixels for nonsensical reasons. So if we free up, let's say, 20,000 pixels on this image, that means we can load a 20,000 pixel image that we couldn't have loaded before because those pixels are all in memory. And Airport Design Editor, being a 32-bit program, has to load all of that data into memory. So now we've got all of the picture files loaded. All we got to do now is actually start editing, which is going to be the point of our next video. So the next video is going to take off from here, and we're going to start actually getting this airport in shape, and we're going to just go over some of the basics. I'm not going to make a tutorial about making an entire airport, but just kind of where I start, where I go from here. And when we get to the last video, it's going to be about creating the lights and airfield light toolbox and getting them imported into Airport Design Editor. And if you've missed anything, you can obviously go back and rewind. If you have any questions after you've watched the video a couple of times and you still can't figure something out, please stop at fsdeveloper.com and see if you can find me. I'm under Aaron Parsons on fsdeveloper.com. You'll see me a lot in the airport and scenery design portion. And as always, rate, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.